motherfucker.
All right. What is going on, everyone? Hello and welcome. DSP here. Live on YouTube. Hello. It is October 4th, 2021. I am Darkside Phil, and I welcome you here to Ask the King episode 88. That's right. I have done this 88 times in the last decade or so that I've been doing Ask the King. It actually started off as a different show and ended up becoming a Q&A show called Ask the King. It is October, which means we have festive holiday decorations behind me for the show. I hope that you're all in a good mood and you're ready to get some answers, because I've got a lot of good questions. We got members-only questions from people who became members of the channel recently. All right, for the first time ever, there's a segment here where we're going to be answering just questions from people who are channel members. Then we got open forum questions of people who posted up on my forums on thekingofhate.com. We've got Twitter questions from people who posted up on my Twitter at TheyCallMeDSP. If we have time at the end of the show, I'll be answering live questions, but also people who contribute during the show, I'll also be giving shout-outs to. You know, if you contribute, I'll give you a shout-out, answer your question on the fly. In fact, we start off today with Anshang Forever, who just tipped me $1.50 and said, today on Dragon Quest 11, I did level up 3 levels again by doing the Pep Up Hallelujah. I got a lot of Seeds of Strength, which is good to make the main hero stronger, and I hope you have a good day and you enjoy Ask the King. Thank you, Anshang, for the first contribution of this very stream. I appreciate that very much. Thank you for getting the contributions rolling. Now, in regards to future Ask the King episodes, first of all, the next episode will be in December sometime, but I'm not sure when. Simply because December is a holiday month. Maybe I'll hold off on Ask the King till we're closer to Christmas. Usually I do it as like a holiday special if we do it during Christmas. So let's see what happens. But the next episode of Ask the King will be sometime in December 2021. Okay? Now, this new thing that I did of getting questions from members, I'm going to continue to do. So this is now an added benefit of becoming a member of the DSP Gaming channel on YouTube. If you become a member, you're going to get priority access to things like asking questions on Ask the King, nominating games for events. Right now, people are nominating games for the upcoming Halloween event. If you're a member, you get priority access to that as well. So this is cool because people have been saying, Phil, can you do something to give extra advantage or an extra way to give back to those who are channel members of your channel? Yes, this is definitely one way to do it, and we've got a lot of questions that I actually took this time around from channel members, as you're about to see. Okay? Sound good? So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope all this sounds good, and I hope you're ready for a fun Q&A session here today. All the animations are going to be holiday themed. If you see a super chat, if you see tips and stuff, they should all be coming in with nice festive holiday animations, FYI. Okay? Alright, I think we're just going to get started. Sound good? All right. So we start off today with questions from people who are channel members. The first person today is Nathan Smith, who asked the following. Phil, I hope you're having a great day. I want to ask, what makes an RPG or a JRPG good in your opinion? Well, for me, when I look at an RPG or a JRPG, there's a few key elements that I'm looking for that make it an RPG that I would want to play at length. Okay, the first is obviously when you're doing a role-playing, you want a great story. Imagine if you're playing a role-playing game and the story's terrible. Then why would you want to continue playing it? RPGs are some of the lengthiest games out there. In fact, I would argue the lengthiest video games out there are RPGs, right? Why would you want to play a 40, 50, 60, 80-hour, 100-hour game if the story sucks and you just don't care what happens in the story? In reality, this is what happened to me when I played Final Fantasy 12. I hated the story, but I liked the gameplay elements. The gameplay elements played like an MMO, and at the time when Final Fantasy 12 had come out, I had actually been playing MMOs, primarily on PC, and I liked that loop. So I ended up getting hooked on the gameplay of this RPG, and I played it for like 12, 15 hours just fighting, ignoring all of the story. I basically went off to all these areas I wasn't supposed to be, fighting all these monsters, and then when I came back to the story, I was like, wow, this story sucks, and I never played the game ever again. So if you don't have a good story, I don't feel like an RPG can work. You have to have a cast of characters that at least you like and elements of a story that you want to know what's going on, what's going to happen. You know, if it's boring or cliche or just something that you're not interested in, why on earth are you going to play an RPG at length, right? Just saying. Now, gameplay elements, too, obviously have to be a major part of an RPG, because if you're playing an incredibly long game that's going to have a lot of gameplay, you want the gameplay to be addicting and fun. And I found that some of the biggest RPGs that I got addicted to, like Diablo in the 90s and early 2000s, the gameplay mechanics are simplistic, but fun to jump into. and it gives you a gameplay loop where you feel like there's always progression and there's always incentive to keep going. If you're playing an RPG and it feels like there's nothing in sight for any kind of redemption, leveling, or any kind of reason to keep fighting, then why keep fighting? But if you're in a game that's addictive and fun and the gameplay is robust enough that it keeps your interest, but then you're getting rewarded and you're leveling up and you're improving your party, you see, that's a lot better. And it's funny because I've played RPGs of all types. I've played turn-based. I've played more action-based. I've played the click-to-fight mechanics like Diablo. I've played very strategic kind of grid-based combat like Final Fantasy Tactics, or just recently last year, Fire Emblem, right? So I've been there. I've played all these different games of RPGs. I feel like the gameplay mechanics of the combat need to be hook you enough that you're going to want to keep playing them, but you feel like you're getting rewarded enough that you're not grinding your gears and wasting your time. Okay? When it comes to an RPG, it's funny because a lot of people say, oh, well, I expect great graphics and music and all that. It's not necessarily true. Like, some of the best RPGs of all time, I feel, are from the 90s when it's pixelated graphics. I don't think the graphics actually have that much to do about it. If the story hooks you, the characters are interesting, and the gameplay has a loop that's interesting to you that keeps you hooked on the game, I don't really think that the graphics and things like that matter that much in an RPG. Now, obviously, take a look at some recent RPGs that have been huge. Persona 5. Oh my god, the game looks like an interactive anime. It's got a catchy soundtrack, but also the gameplay loop is fun and the story's interesting. That's like, it's hitting on all cylinders, you see? So it's good to have those nice things like great graphics and music and all that, but I don't necessarily think it's necessary for success. One other thing, there is a whole other realm of RPG when it comes to MMOs, because MMOs are RPGs. It's just that well, I guess what I should say is MMORPGs, because there are MMOs that are not RPGs, like shooters. But if you're doing an MMORPG, you need to have an element of a reason to play it as an MMO. If you have an MMO, but there's really no incentive to do so, like you team up with other people, but it doesn't really help, there's no social aspect, then why do it? So the whole social aspect is a whole other thing to MMOs that also I feel is an element that's needed for success. And people who are more experts on MMOs and MMORPGs would probably say, oh, the marketplace has to be robust and this and that. I don't really play those games that much anymore. I haven't really played an MMO actively since like the mid-2000s. So I can't really speak to that. But that's what I look for in an RPG. You gotta have a great story that hooks you with good characters that you're interested in, and a story that keeps you going so you want to keep playing this incredibly lengthy game, and a gameplay loop that hooks you that never feels stale or boring and feels rewarding to keep playing it, because what's the point if you're not getting anything out of it, okay? That's what I look for in an RPG, all right? The next question from Nick, who was also a channel member, we're going through channel member questions first, is directly related to this one. He says, what RPG actually made you love that genre of games? Mine was Fallout 3. You got to remember something. I'm 39 years old. I played the oldest of RPGs. The first RPG I ever saw played was Dragon Warrior. This was on the NES. My cousin was playing it, and I watched him play it. I was like, this is intriguing. I've never seen a game like this before. These menus are popping up, and it's slow-paced combat, but you're seeing these fantasy monsters on the screen and all of that. It intrigued me, but I never played it, okay? Then a few years later, my other cousin had a Game Boy, and on the Game Boy, she had Final Fantasy games that were, I guess they were supposed to be like Game Boy exclusive Final Fantasy games. I don't remember what they were. I think it was like Final Fantasy something Quest or something. She had 2 of them on there. And I watched her playing them. I was like, oh, those look good. That looks kind of like Dragon Quest. And then I dabbled a little bit in them. I didn't own the Game Boy, but every once in a while I'd borrow it from her and play a little bit. And I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. My first RPG that I actually owned and played at length was Final Fantasy II on the SNES, which in reality is Final Fantasy IV. But in the United States, it was only the second Final Fantasy game ever to be released, so they called it Final Fantasy II. That was the one that hooked me, for sure. Because, first of all, it was absolutely like the best, most orchestral style soundtrack I'd ever heard in a game. All other games that I had, you know, you're playing Super Mario World or whatever, there's good music, but it didn't sound like a giant orchestra was playing this really dramatic score. It felt like that in the game. The graphics at the time, for me, they blew me away. Of course, now you look at them, you're like, they're pixel crap, but I loved them at the time. I thought that it was some of the better pixelated graphics, or pixel graphics, of that era. And the writing, that was the first game out of all the games that I ever played, really, that the story was the main feature for me. I mean, the gameplay was good, but the story hooked me, and I wanted to keep going, and I wanted to find out what was going to happen in this very intriguing story. It kept going. Suspense. Who's the real villain here? What's going on behind the scenes? Is it Golbez, or is there something else going on? And are they going to be able to save the upper world? Oops, now there's an underworld that you didn't even know existed. Now you're under the world. Oh my god, you're not even on the planet anymore. Now you're on the freaking moon. And it was crazy. The scope of the game just kept increasing over the course of the game that you were playing it. That game absolutely hooked me. Absolutely. And then after that, I wanted to play all the major turn-based RPGs like Final Fantasy III, Chrono Trigger, Earthbound, all the things that came out on SNES, I wanted to play. In fact, I think the only one I didn't play was like Breath of Fire, but all the other like major RPGs I ended up playing on the SNES at the time. So that's it for me. And that's a long time ago, obviously, but great games. Plum Goral has tipped me $4.20, which is the biggest tip of the stream. Says, I have so much catching up to do. I can't believe you're playing Super Monkey Ball. That was my favorite on the GameCube when I was a kid. I'm excited for another Asta King and more variety of games. Cheers. Thank you, Plum Goral. Yeah, I just started Super Monkey Ball. I basically just kind of scratched the surface of what the game is. And it's going to be a late night stream that I'm going to be balancing in with other stuff like Lost Judgment and stuff like that. So I'm excited tonight to see what happens as I play more of the story. I'm sure it's going to get incredibly difficult. As people are saying, it's like really challenging, but it should be fun to watch me try to, make progress in it. Ansukamaru has tipped me $1.50. Says, for me in an RPG, great music is a must. Stuff like Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy, etc. have memorable and amazing music, and it elevates the game to another level. Currently, Tales of Arise has dull music, and it's hard to play at length sometimes. Wow, really? That kind of sucks. Because I agree with you. I think that a great soundtrack is icing on the cake. You know what I mean? You could really get into, oh my god, if that battle theme is addictive and it hooks you, then obviously you're going to want to keep playing that game. And it's disappointing to me when you're playing an RPG and it does have a dull soundtrack. So that kind of sucks to hear that Tales of Arise does. Darn. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's continue here. The next question, a members-only question, from PS3 Troop, asks the following. Hey Phil, this is my first time actually asking a question for Ask the King. However, I've been a long-time viewer. Do you like art at all? Realistic, surreal, hyperrealism, sculpture? Or has there been any art that you've come across in your life that really stood out to you? Or have you ever created something yourself? And then, just so you know, he has another paragraph. It's basically unrelated. Let's read that and then we'll get back to the question. He says, thanks for what you do because I always look forward to your streams. Even if I miss a few, I'll end up catching up later. The laughs I've had over the years keep those bad days at bay. And as it goes, we have to get through tough times to get to the good times. I agree. All great sentiments there. Okay. As for art. When I was younger, I actually kind of started liking musicals and stage plays because the different schools that I went to actually had musicals and stage plays. We actually did a musical of The Lion King when I was in elementary school. When I went to high school, we did Guys and Dolls, Grease, that kind of stuff. And so I actually was a fan. I ended up like watching movies like West Side Story. I actually went to New York City, Broadway. That's what I was thinking of. Broadway, and I saw the two musicals. I saw a musical of not Scrooge. What's it called? A Christmas Carol. The musical of A Christmas Carol. When I was a kid, I saw that with my parents, and then later on, as I was growing up as an adult, I actually saw the Phantom of the Opera musical. And then when I was an adult, in my early 20s, or whenever it kicked in, because I believe it was much later, I saw the Lion King musical. So actually, I was a fan of musicals growing up. Like, I really was. Over time, of course, you kind of grow out of it, and I wasn't really caring that much about musicals anymore, nor watching them. As it comes to actual, like, art that you would see at, like, a museum and stuff, oh, I like that stuff. I'll go to a museum. I'll really enjoy myself looking at paintings, looking at sculptures, and all the like. One of the neatest things that I've done since I moved to Seattle is that in downtown Seattle, there's a bunch of museums in a very small area. There's a pop culture museum that features all kinds of things, music, movies, comic books, video games from over the years. And every time they rotate out the exhibit. So every time I've been there, there's been different stuff to see. And then there's an actual blown glass museum. For those of you who don't know what a blown glass sculpture is, think of glass, which is hard, right? I don't have anything glass around here to show you, but glass is hard. But they heat the glass up to a temperature that it becomes molten. And then they sculpt it while it's molten into something and add coloring to it. It's amazing. It's a very hard thing to do, supposedly. But from what I'm to understand, like, it's rare, and it's something that they actually do out here in Washington exclusively. It's not something that they actually do most other places. It's something very to the Pacific Northwest and Washington State in general. And that museum is amazing. That museum is one of the most unique things you'll ever see. It's something called Chihuly, the Chihuly Blown Glass Museum. Pretty awesome. So yeah, I would argue art is nice, but I haven't necessarily had too much artistic opportunity in my life to be exposed to too much art. When I get a chance, I'll go to a museum. Like I went to a Philadelphia Museum of Art, and I went to the New York, I think it's the Metropolitan Museum of Art. I've been to those places, but I'm not into art. I'm not into that kind of stuff heavily or anything like that. Now, you may not realize it, but video games are art. As much as people would like to just argue that video games are just for kids or just a way to make quick money from people who are mind-numbing and just like to mash buttons, it's not true. Video games are art. Although you might argue that certain video game types are a lot more artistic than others, right? If you look at a game that's an interactive movie, like the Dark Pictures Anthology, and compare that to like RPGs, those are more artistic games, as opposed to, Battle Royale and fucking Warzone. Okay, maybe that's not so artistic. But still, video games are considered art. Okay. Continuing on. The next question is from Wolf's Paradise. Plum Girl actually says, my last company had a Chihuly piece of art in our lobby. 4 stories tall. Annually, they take it apart piece by piece to clean them, and then they reassemble it. Yeah, the blown glass art is amazing. It looks so unique compared to other sculptures. You can see through it. It's bright and vibrant when the sun hits it and stuff. It's pretty neat, man. Okay, the next question is from Wolf's Paradox, who asked the following. Which console generation do you think is the most revolutionary and influential when it comes to graphical and technological advancement compared to the previous generation? My answer on this is going to be completely and utterly different from probably any of you who are watching this right now. I guarantee it. All right? I come from a different generation than a lot of you guys. All right? So for me, my answer is there were 2 times in my life that I felt there were insanely huge console jumps. After that, I just felt like it was incremental, and never a jump. The first would have been from the NES to the era of the Sega Genesis and the Super Nintendo. And the reason that I feel that that was a humongous jump was because, number one, the controllers changed completely. Before then, controllers were incredibly simplistic, little things with like maybe a D-pad and 2 buttons. All of a sudden, the era of 16-bit, controllers ended up getting like 6, 8 buttons. You could do crazy things with them you could never do previously, and games became way more complex as opposed to the very simple layout of games on that 8-bit era. It really was like, oh my god, games have completely expanded into something you never expected they could be in that console generation. In addition, during that console generation was the first time ever you could save your game. So instead of having this disposable kind of feeling to video games in the 8-bit era, okay, I sit down, I play it for half an hour, but that's the end. After that, can't even really pick it up after that because I have to beat it all in one go, right? There's no save function in my NES cartridge. Well, then on the SNES and Genesis, all of a sudden you're saving your games. You can play an RPG that's like 20, 30 hours long and save your progress and continue later. You don't have to do everything in one setting. The one way that they actually got around this back in the day was codes, okay? Actually having, you beat the game to a certain point, and now here's a grid, a 16-character grid of codes. And you have to take down paper and start writing codes down. Oh, here's what I am, and I have to put this code in next time around when I play the game to try to resume from where I am. Mega Man was infamous for doing that. But really, that era of ease of use made it so that longer games could be created, and because of the increased storage space on the cartridges that era, games expanded dramatically into all these different genres and realms you never would have even imagined existed previously on the 8-bit, okay? Now, the other big, giant leap for me, personally, would have been from the pixel art era to the era of 3D and polygons, because we never went back, right? We went from 2D pixelated graphics in every single video game out there to fully rendered 3D models. And that era, if you take a look in history, kind of started around the era of, say, the Sega Saturn and stuff like that, but the one console that brought that to prominence by far was the PlayStation 1. The PlayStation 1 was the console where the vast majority of people developing for it wanted to implement polygons in their games and take games into the 3D realm. Final Fantasy VII, all right, I feel is one of the most overrated Final Fantasy games of all time, but it was the first Final Fantasy to be 3D, and it blew the sales numbers off the roof for games at the time because it was the first era of 3D fantasy game, you know? So, it's funny because, yes, of course they had you know, polygons on previous console gens, but look how primitive games like Star Fox look on the SNES compared to what was coming out for the PlayStation, right? The PlayStation was really the first console that took 3D animation into the mainstream and made so many new kinds of games more realistic. Like, I don't think survival horror would have ever worked pixelated. I just don't think it works. But you take it to the 3D realm, Resident Evil, oh my god, you feel like you're in that mansion, things are coming out, jumping at you and shit, and now you're scared shitless. That game, genuinely, Resident Evil 1 was the first game that scared the crap out of me. I literally almost pissed my pants playing it. With the dog breaking through the window in the hallway. Oh my god, I never fathomed I could be scared playing a video game before. And that was because of the realism of the 3D graphics. So, for me, that was the big one. It was the jump from 8-bit to 16-bit, and then the era of adopting polygons and going into the 3D era. Everything since then, I feel, has been incremental change. Putting games on discs instead of cartridges, improving the controller even more graphical upgrade. Okay, adding online play interface to game. I could go through the whole history of games, and each thing just feels like a little bit of an incremental change. Nothing feels like, oh my god, a ginormous jump forward in games like that era did for me, I just feel like that was a different time for games, Okay, Chicken Man has tipped me $1.50 and says, seeing you seen the legit version of Phantom of the Opera, which I hear is so much better than the tour around the US one that I've seen. Did you like the movie that came out in the late 2000s? It was close to the Broadway show. I never saw it. Yeah. I can't answer the question, sadly. I thought that the musical was very interesting. At that point, the only other Phantom of the Opera thing I'd seen was the original movie, and the movies of Phantom of the Opera from the classics are not like the musical. The musical has so much added storylines and content. It has all these songs and things that actually flesh out different kind of plot lines. It was just a different kind of a plot and a different kind of animal altogether. So, but I never saw the movie, the late 2000s movie, so I can't answer your question. I'm sorry, Chicken Man. Rebel has done a $5 super chat and says the following. Link to the Past to Ocarina as a kid made me stop and take notice that games had an almost infinite ceiling of growth. What's good, Big Phil? What's going on, Rebel? See, here's the funny part about that. Thank you, by the way, for the super chat. Let's get you up as the first super chatter of the day. It's funny you say that because a lot of people, I agree with you, a lot of people saw that jump, the N64 era, taking those 2D Nintendo games and bringing them to the 3D era. A lot of people thought that was groundbreaking and amazing. Personally, when I played Legend of Zelda Link to the Past, that was actually my first exposure to any Zelda game. That's one of my favorite games of all time. I loved it. And then immediately the next game in the franchise was Ocarina of Time. That changed everything. The whole formula was changed. Now you're doing 3D aiming and combat. You're riding horses around in 3D. I didn't like it. I was like, I fell in love with the top-down 2D, and you took that away from me to give me a completely different style of game that's supposed to be the continuation of the franchise, and I didn't like it. Today now, I've played every major Zelda game, and I can appreciate it. But back then, I actually hated the fact that they changed something that I'd grown to love, This snake is very slippery, sliding off my chair here for decoration. Okay. Next question. Again, we're still in members-only questions, guys. I'll let you know when we're out of the members-only questions. But do you see how cool it is if you become a channel member? When I do Ask the King, the whole first segment of Ask the King is going to be answering questions from the members. So that's why it's a huge advantage to become a channel member, a huge increase the chance to get your question answered. Okay? Okay. Next question is from Gothi Senpai, who asked the following. What started your passion for getting into video games as a career, and how do you maintain a steady schedule without feeling overwhelmed by it? Okay? First of all, I didn't start with a passion to make games my career. A lot of people may not know this, but when I started doing this, it was as a hobby. In the years of 2008 through late 2010, early 2011, so almost 3 whole years, okay? I just made videos on YouTube and never monetized a single one. It was just for dicking around. I liked the fact that there were content creators on the internet, which weren't called that back then, but guys like the Angry Video Game Nerd and guys like the Nostalgia Critic, who they literally had no budget. You could tell from their videos they had no budget. The lighting was bad, the quality of the video wasn't great, and it was just them filming in their house or whatever. But because they had a bunch of friends who were into filmmaking or whatever, they dicked around. They made independent series that were entertaining as shit because they were talented. They didn't have the money and the funding, but they had the talent. And so YouTube allowed them to make videos and get noticed, even though they didn't have a big production budget and people backing them. And I loved that. And I was like, man, I honestly wonder if I were to just make videos on a whim. I'm a gamer, lifelong gamer. People say that when I play games and stuff, it's funny to watch me play games because of the commentary that I give and the reactions that I have to what's going on. People always say it's hilarious to listen to me, even when I'm playing fighting games. They're like, well, they love playing fighting games with Phil because of the stuff he says is funny as shit. So maybe I could play games and just do some commentary over it and see what happens. And literally the rest is history. I just dicked around with the camera. It wasn't serious. It wasn't even direct capture. And it took off, and I ended up becoming very popular, especially when Street Fighter 4 came out. The way that I played the game different from the pros. Instead of caring about top-level gameplay, I just dicked around with every character. I did Madness series with the worst characters in the game, like Dan. I would play a long set of matches with Dan just to fuck around, because I didn't care about winning tournaments. I just cared about having silly fun. And that caught on. That resonated with a ton of people at the time when everyone was doing so. Oh, I gotta be a hard-ass, fucking hardcore, try-hard. Everything's gotta be top-level, tournament-level play. I was popular for not that, and people had a bug up their ass about me for it because the pro community was actually upset that I was getting more attention than they were. So anyway, when I started back in the day, it wasn't serious. It was me just dicking around as a hobby. And then I lost my office job, which I've been working at almost 5 years. And I said, you know, I really have nothing I could do right now because the job market at that time in Connecticut over a decade ago was terrible. There were no jobs available of anything like I was doing. I would have had to go from like an office job that was paying me a good amount of money to like a retail job paying me half of that and somehow maintain paying my bills, keeping my condo, my car. How was I going to do that? So I said, I've got this following on YouTube that I never suspected I ever would have because I never took it seriously. It was just me dicking around. Maybe now we can see if I can maybe monetize some videos. So I talked to around a few things, and I ended up getting partnered with Machinima. And the rest, like I said, the rest is history. I just started doing it as a job. It never was me going into it saying, oh, this is me gearing up because I like video games. I want to do this as a career. Today, so many people do that. So many people say, I want to be a full-time streamer that does games. I want to be a YouTuber for gaming. That didn't exist back then. Like, literally, there was no dark side fills on YouTube when I started doing YouTube for a job. The only people making a living doing gaming on YouTube were pro-level players who were putting out incredibly detailed videos. Like, here's how to do a bunch of trick shots in Call of Duty. Here's how to quick scope in Call of Duty. Here's how you do this. Here's how you do that. There was none of this kind of content. Just talking to the camera, just dicking around with games and doing content. There was none of that was popular. If the stuff that was on there was just starting to be popular for the first time, and no one was making a living doing it. I was one of the innovators. I'd argue probably me and maybe like a dozen people at the same time started kind of putting out that kind of content and made it mainstream popular on YouTube. So for me, I didn't have any intention of ever doing it for a career. Never did I go into it like that. The thing was, I had a passion for games, and people could see that. People could see that when I put out content, it was because, not because I wanted to make a buck doing it, but because I enjoy games. I wanted to do funny commentary over it and have a good time with my friends while we played games and stuff like that. That's what it was all about. That's what came through in my content. But the problem is, YouTube eventually shied away from that. What YouTube decided is that instead of having genuine content, like, for example, what we had saw with the Angry Video Game Nerd and Nostalgia Critic. No budget, no production values, but high-quality entertainment. Instead, YouTube shied towards high production values, high funding, high quality, meandering level of entertainment. But because those guys got pushed to the forefront, guys like me got swept under the rug, and people forgot about guys like me. You know, I never changed over the years. I've always been just a normal guy playing games, having fun with you guys. I never aspired to do high-level production videos with a studio, with a team of people, and hundreds of thousands of dollars of funding so that we can pump out these professional-level videos. But that's what YouTube wanted. That's what YouTube promoted when they changed their algorithms over the years to favor those style of videos over the little rinky-dink guy like me. So I never aspired to do this as a job or a career. It just kind of happened. And at one point, it was hyper popular on YouTube until YouTube kind of decided they wanted to change their model to be, oh, we want YouTube to be like a television station. We want YouTube to be like, you know, the destination for high production content. And then everything changed over the years to be even worse than that, because what people ended up realizing was we can take all that crap that YouTube created to push out television style content, and we can just follow the pattern of television. Well, what happened on TV over the years? People just created reality drama content. Every reality show overtook anything else on TV. So that's all that's popular on television now, and that's what happened to YouTube. YouTube became, forget about people having a good time. Forget about people putting out anything that has value. Just create drama crap and pump it out. And that's YouTube now. You know, that's what happened over the years, which is really unfortunate. But as for me, the reason that I push forward and I continue to enjoy myself on YouTube is very simple. Because I'm not here for a paycheck. Because I'm not here to be a talking head popular figure on YouTube. I never cared about that shit. That's why when I got my YouTube play button, which is over here, you guys never see it. It's hanging on my wall over here. I never hung it up. I never talked about it. I didn't give a fuck. I don't care about these silly shit. I'm here to just have a good time. And as long as my audience is having a good time and I'm having a good time, that's all that matters. That's all that's mattered in the over now 13 years that I put out content on the internet. As long as we're all having a good time, I don't give a shit about anything else. You know, I don't care if I'm popular or not. I don't care if I'm hated or not. You know, that's it. So it's that simple. Now, in regards to your second half of your question, how do you maintain a steady schedule without feeling overwhelmed? Variety. Variety. Instead of only doing one kind of thing and one kind of content, I'm constantly doing a variety of games and a variety of things that keep me engaged with my audience. Today, I'm doing Asta King. Tonight, I'm playing Super Monkey Ball. Tomorrow, I'm playing Alan Wake and maybe Hades. On Thursday, I'm playing Far Cry 6 and the Battlefield beta. Holy shit. In 3 days, I'm playing like 5 different genres of game. You see what I'm saying? The variety of what I do allows me to never feel stagnated. And now that I'm an interactive streamer, and every single day I'm having conversation with you on the stream, instead of it just being me sitting here, you know, playing an offline. Oh, I forgot I always have a controller with me now because I have a pocket in my chair. Me just sitting here offline playing a video game, ignoring my audience, just doing commentary on the game. Instead of that, now it's interactive. Now, every day when I talk with you guys, we get all kinds of fun feedback and interactions. We have conversations that I don't even know what I'm going to talk about when I come to a stream, because who knows what you guys are going to talk about and say on my stream. But I like that. That variable of you don't know what's coming keeps me going. You don't know what you're going to have to talk about, but you know you're going to have a good time. You don't know what kind of game you're playing, or you know you're going to play a variety of games. You can never get burnt out on one because you're not doing the same thing. I've said this again and again over the years. I feel that if I were someone who had stuck to one genre, what if back in the day with Street Fighter 4, when it was very popular, and a lot of content creators were doing this at the time, they said, I'm just going to focus on one style of one style of gameplay, one genre of game. I'm going to make myself become a guru on that subject. So people will come to my channel just to see expertise on fighting games and stuff like that. I very well could have done that, all right? I feel I would have completely gotten bored with it and gotten burnt out, especially because of the fact, if you look at my history of fighting games in the last 10 years, I haven't liked many of them. I feel that Street Fighter went right off the rails into a realm of gameplay that I don't enjoy with Street Fighter V. The Tekken franchise just got more and more complex over the years, to the point where, like, it's easy to pick up at a basic level, but to play that anything to do with, like, some complex gameplay or competitive gameplay, it would take so much time and effort to get good at Tekken. You know what I mean? And that's not a negative. That's a positive, I feel. But at the same time, I just have never been blown away by fighting games in the way that I was back in the day with the classics. Today, I would much rather sit down 2 hours a week and play Street Fighter 2 than sit down and play any modern fighter. I mean it. Like, that's just, I grew up with those classics. I don't feel like any of the modern fighting games live up to the level of competition and gameplay level like the classics. That being said, imagine if I had made that choice years ago. Oh my God, I just want to do one style. Or what if I had decided, because first-person shooters were so popular, just every year I'm just going to play Call of Duty Hardcore, and any other shooters come out, I'll play too. I mean, I would have went through all of these fucking evolution shifts like all of those guys, right? They all used to play arena shooters. Now it's fucking Battle Royale. And it's hilarious to me because what actually happened is in the last couple of days, people have been playing the Halo Infinite closed beta. You have to be a special snowflake streamer, specially selected by Microsoft to play this fucking beta. Okay, I didn't even register for it. I didn't give a fuck. And people are having mixed reactions to the beta. People who like Halo and people who've played Halo before are like, this is really good. They basically improved the franchise to the point where it looks like this is going to be a really good game, okay? But it's hilarious because there's mainstream content creators out there, all right? And they're literally saying to their audience, I think Halo Infinite will fail because it doesn't have a Battle Royale mode. You know why they're saying that? Because what's happened over the years is when you stick to only one genre of game and you don't diversify your horizons of what you play, now your audience get used to just that, okay? All of a sudden, there's a game coming out that's not that. Oh, that game sucks. I can't, because you're just thinking about dollar signs. You're not thinking about the quality of the game you're playing. You're not thinking about, fun factor or even professional level gameplay factor, competitiveness. You're just thinking of, what can I monetize? Well, I can monetize Battle Royale. It's getting harder to monetize Arena Shooter. So I'm just going to say Halo Infinite sucks, and we're not going to play it, and we're going to just do Battle Royale games later on this year. You see? I never wanted to pigeonhole myself into a situation where I'm forced to play crap I don't like. And that's what would have happened, I feel, if I had just done one style of content back in the day. So the reason that I don't feel overwhelmed, the reason that I don't feel like I get bored with games is because there's a variety of stuff all the time. Now, I'm not saying I never feel overwhelmed. I'll give you a perfect example. This week, okay? This week, there's so many games coming out in a short period of time, I can't play them all. I want to. Like, I'll give you an example. Right now, I'm playing Lost Judgment. Amazing game. Can't wait to play more. But it's such a lengthy RPG. I know that's going to be something that's going to take me forever to make progress. I'm now playing Super Monkey Ball Banana Mania. I like it. I want to play more of it. I'm going to tonight. Tomorrow is the premiere of Alan Wake Remastered. Also coming out tomorrow is Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl. On Thursday, it's Far Cry 6, plus the Battlefield 2042 beta. On Friday, it's Metroid Dread. On Tuesday, it's Back 4 Blood. Oh, by the way, there's another game coming out in there, too, that I don't even remember. And it's like, wait, what? What? How? Yeah, now I feel overwhelmed. Because all these games are coming out, and of course, someone wants me to see me play every game. And I can't do that. I'm one guy. I can only play so much. I don't want to adopt 10 games into my schedule that I can only play once a week, and now we make no progress in anything. That's not the kind of content creator I am. I try to put out steady progress in the games that I play and actually do full playthroughs. So what's the point of me picking up another 2-3 games this week if I can't play them more than once a week, and now we make zero progress, right? So admittedly right now, this is the toughest time of the year for me. It's the best time of the year because there's so much gaming that I don't really have to go far to find anything to do on my streams. But at the same time, it's the toughest decisions I have to make. Like this week, I already decided I'm not playing Nick All-Star Brawl. I'm just going to skip it. And Metroid Dread, I want to play it, but I'm going to hold off and probably play it near the end of the year, like around December-ish. Once all this other stuff calms down, I'll go to it then. That's not a decision I take lightly, and that's not a decision that I like making. That's a decision, that's the tough decision. It really is for me. Because I know there's people that want to see me play those games, and there's nothing I can do about it. I can't clone myself to play that much. You know what I'm saying? But I'm excited for the games, and it is what it is. Yes, I am overwhelmed right now. But thank God I have the experience under my belt to say, here's the right way to approach it. Not, let's just play every game and fuck myself over because now I can't make progress. So the variety keeps me going, and the variety makes it so I don't get burnout, but I do still get overwhelmed when there's just so many games in a short period of time. Okay? All right. The final question that I have here from a channel member. Then after that, we're actually going to go to what were the open forum questions from non-members. This one is from Corrupted Covenant. And the question is the following. What are your top 3 favorite platformers of all time? Well, I've played games for quite a long time. That's a very tough question to answer. All right? But what I would have to do, I would have to think about when it comes to platforming, what are some of the classics and some of the ones that kind of inspired the ones from the future and the ones that if I went back and played them today, I'd probably have just as much fun as when I played them back in the day. And my answers are as follows. First of all, my favorite Mario Brothers game ever, Super Mario World. It's a shorter game, admittedly, but every time I play it, there's a smile across my face. I'm grinning ear to ear. The soundtrack's outstanding. The graphics at that time were amazing. The gameplay mechanics are complex and interesting. There's secrets out the butt. There's alternate ways to do every stage. I love Super Mario World, and I will still to this day say it's the best Mario game of all time. Okay? Mega Man 2. Mega Man 2 is my favorite Mega Man game of all time. It dramatically improved upon the formula of Mega Man 1, and it laid the groundwork for all of that style of shooter game up to the future. There's so many games today that are inspired by Mega Man that you don't even realize that they are, but they absolutely took influence from things from Mega Man back in the day. And Mega Man 2 is my favorite of the entire franchise, so Mega Man 2 for sure. And the other one is one that I'm sure a million people probably put on their list, Metroid. The original Metroid. That one, again, that created an entire genre. The whole Metroidvania, open world exploration, backtracking to get items later on, great combat, platforming, puzzles, bosses. Definitely Metroid. Those are my top 3. Okay? Okay. Now, some shout-outs. Chicken Man tipped me $1.50 and says, I would not say tech-wise. I think the original Xbox changed a lot in the gaming industry. Halo 1 is pretty much the main reason, or excuse me, the mainstream birth of first-person shooter gaming. Xbox Live was the same thing when mainstream online gaming became a thing. Now, I would agree with you in some regards. However, this is what a lot of people don't realize, is that, yes, Halo was the birth of the competitive first-person shooter on console. On console. First-person shooters were huge on PC way before Halo. I was playing Unreal Tournament. I was playing Quake Arena. You know, I was playing those games on PC in the late 90s into the first half of the 2000s, way before Halo 1 was ever released. And it was hilarious because a lot of my friends were telling me about, oh, you got to play this game Halo. And I started looking at it, I'm like, it looks like shit. It looks like really bad game because the graphics are so terrible on console. And by the way, Halo, incredibly slow-paced and slow-moving compared to PC games because of the limitations of the consoles. You see? I would agree with you, though, that Halo was the very first competitive shooter on console. And therefore, it made people realize, oh, we can play these games on console now. And game developers said, oh, we could have competitive games on console. People will buy them. And then it just changed the face of console gaming. I completely agree there. Before, console gaming was kind of like, console's the place you go if you just want to have a standalone experience. If you want competition, you go to PC. That's how it always was. Competitive gaming, PC, standalone kind of experience, single-player experience, console. And then Halo changed that. I have to agree with you there. Okay. Ow. Ow. Uncle Vatrid tipped me $5, which is the biggest tip of the day, by the way. We'll get that up on the leaderboard in a second. He says, any chance we'll see you return to Neo or Neo 2 to complete the DLCs? I love both games, and I think you can tolerate the ultra-hard BS that your DLCs include. At the core of all 6 of them are great expansions, which are worth the money. Neo 1, I played the major DLC for it. I hated it. It seemed like what they did is they literally just loaded every single area with unfair situations where all the odds were completely and unfairly stacked against you, so that you had to use insane amounts of trial and error to figure out how to get past each and every wall. Like every door you walk through, there's 12 enemies on the other side all attacking you at once. You know, choke points. Oh, walk through the door. Oh, there was a guy right around the corner behind you, insta kills you. It's like, I hated it. I didn't like that DLC at all. And since then, like, the thing is, I've definitely noticed this over the years, all right? When I play a game as a new release, typically there's interest for it. People will want to see, gee, well, how does Phil react to that new release? Is it any good? DLCs just don't get any kind of attention compared to the mainstream. Now, there have been some exceptions. For example, I just did a completionist run of Fallout New Vegas, and people all but demanded that I play the DLCs because the DLCs for that game are quite good. And they add a lot to the game, too. They really do. I mean, pretty much doubled the length of my playthrough doing the DLCs, all right? But most times these days, whenever I try to do a DLC, no one cares. I'll give you a perfect example. Ghost of Tsushima was the playthrough of the summer of 2020. It was fun as hell. I played it for like 2 months. I did every piece of content in the game. I platinumed it. People were turning out every time I played it. People supported those streams. Absolutely loved it. Amazing playthrough. You know, Game of the Year contender. In fact, I think it was second place Game of the Year, you know, runner-up to Yakuza 7 for me. Okay? Then the DLC came out this summer. No one cared. People weren't showing up for the streams. People were complaining, why are you playing this? You already played this game. It hasn't changed enough to warrant our interest. It was like the whole attitude had changed completely towards the game in a year. And I feel that that's what happens is when you have a game and there's a major DLC for it, if you've already beaten the main story of the game, there's just not a lot of interest for it. You know, there's some exceptions. For example, if there's a fighting game, there's an expansion character. Oh, well, if that character's totally new, a different kind of build, doesn't play like other characters, and changes the face of the game, that's different. But for most situations, I've honestly found that people just, they're just not digging DLC. I don't know what else to say about that. It just seems to be the case. And, you know, maybe in the future that would change, but every time I do a DLC, it just doesn't really bring in that kind of attention anymore. So I don't really bother with them, you know. The Neo DLC, I'm sure, is good. I just don't care about it. I don't. I played Neo. I liked Neo 1 and 2 when I played them. I have zero desire to go back and play those DLCs, and my audience has not really asked for them, so that's why you haven't seen me play those, okay? An anonymous $2 tipper, let's see here, says, the odd thing now is you have parents buying their kids gaming rigs now just to get them started in streaming because they saw some gaming streamer on Jimmy Fallon. I guess this is in regards to when I was talking about 15 minutes ago about, you know, what was it? How I got into how did I get into video games as a career? That's right. You're absolutely right. There's actually people now, they watch, you know, on a late night show, they got some fucking ninja on there or something. Oh, you mean so if I just buy a gaming PC for my kid, they can just start fucking streaming and they're going to become rich? Oh, this is cool. Let's do it, right? It's not really how it works, but you're absolutely right. And until recently, did anyone really think that was possible? Of course not. Me, when I started on YouTube, there was literally no one like me making a living doing it. 0 people were doing what I was doing and making a living. So I was definitely one of the group of innovators there. So, okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go for about another 10 minutes, and then we're going to take our first break of Ask the King. I'm going to probably grab 1 or 2 more questions to answer before we take that break, okay? Fair enough? So, now we have finished the members-only questions. Again, I would like to say thank you to those who are channel members of my channel and support my channel. I sifted through to try to get the best questions. I felt that those were the ones that would be the most entertaining for the show, and I do appreciate the fact that you guys posted up in the members-only area on the community tab that I put up there. Thank you so much. Now we can move on to the open forum questions where everyone else posted, and let's see what people had to ask this time, okay? All right, we start off with URL8, and they ask the following. What is your opinion on game emulators and emulation in general? Would you be willing to use an emulator for any of your playthroughs? Do you think of it as piracy, or do you think that it might help preserve games in the long run? And also, is there any console that isn't emulated very well or at all that you would like to see a functioning emulator for in the future? While we're at it, is there any game in particular that isn't emulated very well or at all that you want to see playable in the future? What I would argue is, first of all, to answer your first part of your question, I've used emulation over the years, okay? I've used it when I felt like it was absolutely necessary to do what I needed to do a playthrough. So I'll give you an example. Back in the day, I think we're talking like, I want to argue it was like the summer of like 2013 or something like that. So we're talking like 8 years ago. I wanted to do a summer of retro. During the summertime, what I wanted to do was a series of games that I could all play easily. I could plug them right into my setup, capture immediately, have no issues, and play through a series of retro games. Whether it was on the Genesis, whether it was on the SNES, you know, classic style games like that. And I did. And that summer, I played so many games. I played a Super Mario World co-op with my friend John Rambo. I did a full playthrough of games such as Chrono Trigger, Earthbound. I'm trying to remember if I did Legend of Zelda Link to the Past that summer. I might have as well. And I want to say I even did more than that. I can't remember exactly all the games I played, but I played at least 3 or 4 retro games. Now, why did I emulate them? At the time, there was no actual, like, foolproof way to do it. Like, later on, what ended up happening was Nintendo actually did a huge takedown on the internet of all the ROM sites where you could get those games and emulate them because they put them on their own virtual console. Now, you know what? I'll be honest with you. Doing it on virtual console is fine. Playing those games on virtual console is solid. You know that they're going to run well. They're not going to crash. They're going to be reliable. Doing emulation actually isn't that reliable. I remember the games actually crashing a few times when I was doing them that summer. If Nintendo had an option readily available, okay, I absolutely would have used it. I absolutely would have done that. But at that time, it wasn't. At that time, you had to emulate to even get that stuff, okay? Things change over time. So if there are things that are viable over time. Now people are saying, is PayPal down? Oh my God, is PayPal down? Well, first of all, is the tips link working? If I type this in here. Now I gotta interrupt my show to check on this. Hold on. Here you go, leave a tip. So I click on this, it opens up. Page is loading. The page is endlessly loading. Ah. Okay, hold on. Maybe Stream Elements is down. If that's the case, that would be what's going on. Let's see if Stream Elements is down completely. Well, my tips page loads on Stream Element. Well, excuse me. My tip leaderboard loads on Stream Elements. I see that much. There and yeah, all that. Everything seems to be working in this regard. But you're right. It seems like the tip page is endlessly loading and not working. Great. I don't know why. It's just endless loading symbol, right? So you're right. For some reason, the thing is not working. I wonder if it's just me or if it's others. Right? No, my PayPal is not frozen. My PayPal is not frozen. I know that for a fact. Let's take a look here. No, there's my PayPal here. I'll actually log into it as well. I guarantee you my PayPal is not frozen. Hold on. Now it's logging into the wrong thing. Hold on. I'm logging in. Sorry that I have to interrupt the stream with this, but obviously it's important. Okay, I can see the funds from the tips that have come in so far today. They're in the PayPal account. There is no pop-up or anything on the PayPal account claiming that it's not working. Nope. So it doesn't appear to be my PayPal account at all. Everything is saying it's available. Everything is saying it's fine. Yeah. So, and you know, the latest tip was about 20 minutes ago. It was working as of 20 minutes ago. And like I said, I'm looking. I was not notified by anyone. Yeah. I was not notified by anyone that this happened. I don't know why it would not be loading. I can't answer the question, but I'm looking at it right now, and it literally just infinitely loading. The page will not come up. What if I just do this? Hold on. The page loads. The page actually loads. The Dark Side Filled page on Stream Elements loads. So, I really have no idea what's going on. Everything else seems to work. But you click on Tip Dark Side Fill, and the page just sits here and loads endlessly and doesn't come up. And it worked as of 20 minutes ago, and like I said, I received no message whatsoever stating that it doesn't work. Worst case scenario, if this doesn't work, I mean, what I'd have to do is research if there's another payment processor out there that takes payments and allows you to do pop-ups on stream. If it doesn't work, I mean, what can you do? What I'll have to do, excuse me, I'll have to just start taking direct payments via PayPal that don't have a third party. It's just go to my PayPal or send a payment via PayPal and leave a message in the tip. And then I could actively just check those during the streams and read. But it really sucks. Obviously, I want something that's integrated in the stream, so there's pop-ups on screen and I can read out stuff for you guys, okay? Anshing Forever says, I went to another streamer's Stream Elements, and their page is the same issue as yours. Perhaps the issue is the site. Ah, okay. If that's the case, if that is the case, then it's everyone, right? Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Anshing, for checking. Because sadly, you know, there's no way for me to check that. I don't know, go to another stream and check it. So it sounds like no one right now can do anything with PayPal during these. They're all trying to do it, and it doesn't work. Oh, I'm well aware that Facebook is down. Yeah. Babu Chan did a super chat, says PayPal is saying it's currently down on Down Detector. Oh, yeah? All right, so here's the deal. If you want to tip me today, which, by the way, I need help with tips today, I do. Obviously, it's a major part of my business. What you'd have to do is actually send a direct payment to my PayPal, which is darksidefil@hotmail.com. Okay? Just send it directly. I would appreciate that. If you do, I can check, because I should get emails and stuff in regards to that, and I can always check and see if it came through. But then again, if PayPal is down in its entirety, then it might not go through at all. All right? So I don't know what's good. It seems like, yeah, a lot of things are going on right now. For now, let's not go crazy. Let's continue with the show. Let's not freak out about this. All right? Let's continue with the show for now. Thank you, Babu Chan, for the super chat. Let's get you on the leaderboard here. This happened before, by the way. This did happen before earlier this year, and PayPal was down for like maybe a half an hour to an hour, and then it came back up, no problem. So, okay. The rumor is China hacked us. I don't know about that. I don't know if China hacked us. Yeah, I don't know. Okay. All right, I think we'll continue on. Thank you, Chicken Man, who just did a super chat as well. He says, what's your opinion on Capcom focusing more on PC? I don't really care. I don't even know how they think they're going to do that. I guess they think they're selling more on PC or something when, I don't know. Who knows, right? I have absolutely no idea. Here we go. I don't know. I don't understand how they think that they're going to sell more games on PC. I don't get it. But, okay. Anyway, let's continue. Let's get back to the question at hand, and then let's take a break, because like I said, we were actually getting close to our first break of the stream. Okay? All right, so URL 8's question was about emulation. I have done emulation in the past, but it was only when it was absolutely needed or necessary. If I wanted to play a game that was actively not available to buy and play anywhere on a console or anything like that, then I would do it as emulation. I've done it in the past, but you'll see I did not regularly do emulation. Usually if I'm going to do any emulation, it'll be like, oh, I'm doing a Christmas marathon. People want to see me play Home Alone. Well, Home Alone, you can't really buy anywhere, you know? So I get it. I emulate it. You know what I mean? So that's the deal. And I hope that makes sense. You know, I wouldn't go out of my way to emulate something that I could buy. I feel like if there's a way to legally buy it and have that transaction and give the money to the people who own the rights, you should do that. If there's a way that there's no way that you can get access to something, for example, there's consoles out there that there's no way to play their games anymore. They didn't remake them for modern consoles. There's no digital way to play them. Just for legacy purposes, you know, maintaining the history of games, because games are art. As much as some people will argue they're not, they are. Games are a form of art. We need to preserve art. So I feel that emulation should be a way to do that in the future. Okay? Who should have access to that? I don't know. I'm not here to answer those kind of questions. I don't want to say, oh, everyone should just have access to everything out there for free if it's not, you know, if the rights aren't held by someone and no one's actively publishing it. No, I don't think that's the case. Obviously, there's got to be different limitations and things. But you shouldn't have entire games basically be sucked into the phantom zone and be unavailable to be played by anyone ever again, and they get forgotten in the annals of history because a game company doesn't want to publish it anymore or make it anymore for purchase, and they don't allow emulation either. You know what I'm saying? Like, there should be a way to preserve this kind of stuff, and I think emulation is the way to do it. But I think what would have to happen is there has to be oversight. There has to be people, you know, looking into the situation and figure out how to do it legally. Okay? Now, do I think that it's piracy? Absolutely, emulation is piracy if you're literally just ripping games that are for sale right now and playing them for free. That's piracy. That's illegal. That's stealing. But there's a difference between, oh, I'm stealing this game when I know I could be paying for it legally to play it for free, or, oh, here's a game I can't play anywhere else. The only way I could do is get it off the internet. That's different. It's a very different situation. Okay? Okay. Is there any game in particular that isn't emulated well that I think I'd like to see playable in the future? Oh, I have no idea. I don't know. Right now, I don't know. See, you're basically hitting me. You're hitting me with a situation where it's like, I don't know. You know, I don't know what's going to happen with games. I don't know what games are being preserved, what games are not being preserved. You know what I'm saying? Like, I have absolutely no clue. And so I can't really speak to it. I'd have to do research on that. I wish I could give you a better answer URL, but I don't have the answer to that, okay? All right, so, ladies and gentlemen, I'm about to go on break. The first break of Ask the King. As all this was going on with PayPal, someone who frequently gives behind-the-scenes contributions in the past has swung by, and I guess they want to help out with the situation because they realize maybe I'm not going to get any tips on this stream today because of this situation. I just received a $100 tip from No Couture. $100. And the reason you didn't see it pop up on the stream is, number one, because Stream Elements isn't working anyway. But number two, No Couture is one of those people that gives contributions behind the scenes to, you know, maintain an air of privacy and not get harassed online for their contributions. So, just like that, we shot all the way up. And no, that's not Only Iced Coffee, and you're now banned for even saying that because you're a dunce. This is not Only Iced Coffee, you fucking nitwit. Because of that, we have jumped 2 reward tiers of tips. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put up a poll. I'm going to go on break right now, but I'm going to put up a poll during the break where the live viewers here on stream are going to vote on a hat for me to wear when I come back from stream. Because that's right. The way we're doing Ask the King now is I start with the cowboy hat, but then you guys pick a hat for me to continue to wear on the show if we hit the $100 tips goal, which we just did. All right? So I'm going to put up that poll. You guys vote during the break. When I come back from break, I'll wear the new hat as well as a pair of glasses. And we'll go from there. And No Couture, thank you, because, yeah, this kind of sucks with PayPal apparently not working and having issues. It could be a major issue for me, you know, not being able to get any income today via tips. I don't know why the page is infinitely loading and not working. So, thank you very much, No Couture, for that support. Hopefully this thing does get cleared up over the course of the day. All right. Let's go on a break, everybody. Let's go on a break. I shall return with more Ask the King shortly. Alrighty then.